We'll certainly follow up on that. While we had an elaborate conversation on that on the news at 10 yesterday, this morning we'll also follow up on that with Adesola Sumoni. He's an analyst with Financial Derivatives Company, joining us from Reading now to talk about this inflation. Hi, Adesola. It's been a while. Good to see you.
Good morning, Ine. It's been a while indeed.
Yeah.
Good to see you too.
Yeah. Well, we're not seeing you on a very good note, even though I know right there in the UK, by now you're used to inflation, recession, and all of that. It seems even tighter there. But, I mean, let's look at Nigeria now. This didn't come as a surprise because FDC, it's within the range of FDC's prediction. And so is this all about the energy costs? Because we see that food inflation is tapering. So is this more about the energy costs? What's really driving inflation this high at this time?
Thank you for that question, Ine. Like you mentioned, Nigeria's headline inflation has increased for the 6th consecutive month to 17-year high of 19.6%. And many factors are responsible. One is higher food and fuel prices, particularly coming from the Russia's war in Ukraine. We also have higher diesel prices, which is quite significant. If you look at the numbers, the data for a liter of diesel around January this year was costing around 250 naira or 300 naira per liter in some parts of Nigeria. But as at now, that has increased to around 850 naira per liter to some parts of Nigeria. And given the Nigeria's the nature of the electricity supply in Nigeria, there's a lot of dependence on diesel-fired generators and also for transportation. So that has big implications for inflation. We're also seeing currency weakness. I think one of the bigger issues is the currency weakness, is given that Nigeria is still heavily dependent on imports. So the import bill is quite huge, and then what happens is many of the suppliers simply just pass some of these costs down to consumers. I mean, that also depends on the elasticity. But these are factors that are driving inflation higher at this time.
Yeah, well, it's not strange. It's not just in Nigeria. I mean, over there in the UK, it's about the same thing, and we hear the talk about energy costs and all of that. But what is different about Nigeria? Because a lot of people have said that if the variables were better handled, Nigeria would not actually be this, I do know that even in Turkey we do have inflation up to about 80%, but they have droughts to deal with. Nigeria doesn't have drought to deal with. So if the variables were better handled, do you think that perhaps we would have escaped, even if it's a part of this high inflation?
Let me give you some context in it. So first, let me say that this is not specific to Nigeria. Like globally, even here in the UK, let me just give an example. Every day for lunch, I have a meal deal, sandwich and some crisps. It costs £3.50. Everyone knows that. But you go there today, it's £4.50. I'm like, come on, this is a country that usually has 2% inflation. Now inflation is at a 40-year high. If you look at our neighbors in sub-Saharan Africa, look at Ghana, for example. Ghana's inflation for July is at 31%. Right. We also have other countries like Uganda, 7.9%, which is relatively low, but they registered increase in inflation in July. We have Zambia also 9.9%, up in July. Kenya also 8.3%. So this is not a specific to Nigeria. What makes Nigeria's inflation quite higher is a host of factors. Number one is the exchange rate issues. That exchange rate is going to be the bane of Nigeria. We've been talking about this for ages. We're going to keep talking about it because Nigeria imports quite a lot of raw materials. For instance, flour. The price of flour also has increased sharply. And because we also import we import a lot of flour, and the exchange rate has weakened, the costs the import bill is simply significantly higher. So we have the exchange rate issues. We also have security issues, particularly in insecurity issues, I beg your pardon, particularly in growing areas. So we have conflicts in many of the growing areas, which reduces the amount of production, and that also factors into inflation. I'll give you an example. If you look at the price of some commodities for some domestic commodities. Look at, for instance, the price of tomatoes. The price of a 50 kg bag of tomatoes is up 80% to around 45,000 naira. If you look at peppers also, peppers are up around 66% to 30,000 naira. That's a 50 kg basket. Or onions are also up 28% to 32,000 naira. So that insecurity is also driving inflation significantly higher. Finally, the cost of diesel. I mentioned earlier that cost of diesel has increased sharply this year alone, mainly due to what is happening, the Russia's war in Ukraine, which is passing through to the cost of diesel in Nigeria. Also take into account that the diesel is deregulated. So as the price of crude oil in the global market goes higher, the price of imported diesel also increases.
But for 4 months now, we've been having reports that global food prices is tapering. Where is that? Where is it? Is it in the UK? I don't think I've seen it in Nigeria.
Indeed, the price of food index globally is tapering, but again, it's the exchange rate, right? You know what happened over the past couple of months. The exchange rate has been very, very volatile, particularly at the parallel market. And also because many of these Nigerian importers cannot access their needs, their FX needs from the official market. So they have to go to the parallel market, and the inflow into the parallel market is small. That is why the price keeps rising. The price of the dollar in the parallel market keeps rising so sharply. And because when we import these things, the suppliers, the producers simply pass on some of these costs to the final consumer. So I think that's the big issue, the exchange rate challenge. And the handling of the exchange rate by the central bank is another issue which I would not like to delve into today. But that has also worsened, I would say, the exchange rate issues in Nigeria. Also, even look at Nigeria as an oil exporting country. We are supposed to benefit, right, from the higher oil prices in the global commodities market. But many factors, limit the kind of benefits that Nigeria is able to get. One is oil theft, right? We every day read the news, you hear that there's some vandalism to the oil infrastructure, there's some oil theft, and all of these factors simply reduce how much Nigeria can, the FX, the oil earnings Nigeria can make from the higher oil prices. Also, take into account the subsidy, right? I just read this morning that for the first 6 months of this year, Nigeria spent 1.6 trillion naira on food subsidy.
You just hang it there, Additional. I don't want to elaborate on that because, that subsidy, it's obviously a huge bill on Nigeria's budget because I think now we're talking about 7 trillion naira, and already debt servicing is higher than revenue. And if we continue with that subsidy, I don't even know how we are going to fund that. And now the NLC is asking government to increase workers' salary by 50%. The government says the country is broke, so it's a complicated cycle we see there. And then the oil, as you mentioned, we discussed it elaborately yesterday. The issue of oil theft is right there facing us and chopping off what we would have had as revenue. But talking about oil prices, China led the prices down. I think it's been down since yesterday, 3% yesterday, still down this morning. What's going on? Is it COVID again?
Exactly. So, for context, China plays such a big role in global commodities market. They are the largest importer of most commodities, the largest buyer of most commodities. For oil, they are the biggest importer of oil globally. For copper, China alone accounts for around 15% of global copper imports. So they are the biggest buyer of copper as well. So whenever there is economic slowdown, for instance, we register slower than expected growth in China across many sectors, that simply weighed down on global oil demand, and also has some implications of the impending recession that economists keep talking about, global recession. So essentially that's what's happening. And what is happening in China? China has this zero COVID policy. Once they have a COVID case, they lock down. There's serious, strict lockdown, that has implications for economic activity. That's exactly what has happened in China. In fact, economists are now revising downwards GDP growth for China for the rest of the year. Some economists have revised it down from around 4.4% to 4%. So that is exactly what is happening. But in addition to that, we are seeing a stronger US dollar. We know that oil is denominated in US dollars. And when the dollar strengthens against a basket of other currencies, we find that oil becomes relatively more expensive to holders of these other currencies. On the supply side, we are seeing there's talks about this Iran nuclear agreement that there's some renewed talks about it, that an agreement will soon be reached. Once that agreement is reached, we are going to see some new oil coming online from Iran, which is going to taper prices a little bit.
And I also think I read something about Saudi Arabia to boost its outputs also. This might, of course, also affect price and bring it down even further.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. We know Saudi Arabia is the largest OPEC producer, and if they boost their output, definitely OPEC's output is also going to increase. But take also into account that there are some members of OPEC who are still not able to increase their production. Nigeria,
like Nigeria.
We also have Angola,
yes.
who's able to increase
so do you see the world being able to move on without Russian oil? Europe is threatening that by the end of the year they're going to win themselves. Do you see, with maybe if the Iran deal is cleared and then Iran adds its supply, even though Iran and Russia are friends, and then you also have Saudi Arabia boosting its production, do you see the world able to move on without supply from Russia, at least to an extent?
Yes and no. Russia is such a big player, right? If they were a marginal player, then yes. But Russia is such a big player. It is extremely. It can happen. It's just that we are going to pay the cost, right? For instance, I'll give an example. Look at natural gas. Russia is one of the biggest producers of natural gas, right? Europe has been struggling to win itself of Russian natural gas, and what the next biggest producer is the US, right? The US is producing at capacity, right? They can't produce anymore except there's new investments in natural gas infrastructure, but yet it is not sufficient to meet the demand. So that's exactly what's happening. Even if Saudi Arabia is producing at capacity, even if Nigeria and Angola are able to increase their oil production significantly, it's still not enough to fill up the gap that will be created by a world without Russia. So prices will definitely still remain elevated.
And Nigeria could tap into that. And cocoa prices have been going up. I think it's about a month now or more. We've seen a rise in the price of cocoa.
Well, thank you for that question, Ini. Mainly is due to fertilizer issues in Ghana and Ivory Coast, right? So again, Russia is one of the biggest producers of potassium. Is it potassium or potash? Potash. And potash is used to make fertilizer, right? So because of these war issues, because of the war in Ukraine, there are issues around fertilizer production, and as a result, producers in Ghana, producers in Ivory Coast, which are the largest producers of cocoa in the world, they are concerned about the output for next year if they are not able to acquire or obtain sufficient fertilizer for planting this season. So that's exactly why prices are rising. Concerns about fertilizer, but it's positive for Nigeria because Nigeria is also one of the biggest producers of cocoa globally. But in terms of the impact on the external results, it is very, very tiny.
Yes,
very, very tiny.
Exactly, because I mean, we have the president of Cocoa Association some weeks back, and he told us how sad he is that we're not able to, in fact, even scratch the surface of cocoa production. So imagine if we were able to, this issue of boosting the external reserve, we don't have to look at just oil. This would have been one way to actually do that at this time.
Exactly.
All right, Adesola Sumoni, it will be good to have you again on Thursday. We have missed you. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah. All right, so that was Adisola Sumoni, analyst with Financial Derivatives Company, and I'm sure we'll have him again on Thursday, another Commodities Day. For now, we'll take a break. When we come back from that break, we'll continue our conversation on how we could boost Nigeria's foreign reserve. It's still very top on our minds. This is Business Morning on Channels Television.